Thursday, June 18th. How's everyone doing out there? Heather and I had another couple of great interviews today that we can't wait to share with you, including right off the top, Heather, Julie Lafontaine.
Yes, Julie Lafontaine, Executive Director of the Open Door, will be talking about the summer meals program for kids.
Take it away, Julie.
Good morning, Corey. Good morning, Heather. I'm really excited to be here to talk to you about the Open Door Summer Meal Program that is launching really as we speak. We are taking over for the school food service that's been faithfully doing this breakfast and lunch program through the pandemic. And they finished yesterday, and today the Open Door team is just stepping right in to pick up where they left off and provide meals which include lunch and breakfast for kids in Gloucester and in Ipswich.
So will the sites be the same, Julie?
So the sites are the same, with the exception that we're adding a site at the Open Door, and it's an afternoon supper site from 3 to 5 p.m.
And I know the city program is open to, or was open to, all children on Cape Ann. Is that the same for the Open Door? So
the Open Door, under a special state waiver, is able to run what are called open sites. So if kids show up, kids can eat.
Okay, great. And could you just list those sites? We should have done that before.
Oh, sure. Yes. So probably, Heather, the best thing to do would be for people to go to foodpantry.org, where all of the sites and times are listed. But we can do a quick rundown here. We'll be at the Beeman and Veterans Elementary Schools. We'll be at Willowwood Park and Riverdale Park, which are public housing neighborhoods. And then in addition to that, we will be at the Open Door. We will be at Pondview Village, and then we'll be at Agawam Village in Ipswich.
Okay, great. And will children who have already participated in this program, is the school offering any sort of information that will allow them to realize this program will just proceed?
Yes, so that's a great question, Heather. We work closely with the school department to make sure the information was distributed out this week, signaling the change of programming, and it went out not only in English, but in Spanish and Portuguese as well.
Okay, great. And I have a question about funding. So the city was paying for this program through the COVID program, is that right? And
let's just talk a little bit about the funding for National School Lunch and Summer Meals Program. Those are actually federal programs, and they're reimbursable under federal program guidelines. And so it was the school department that was administering the federal program. Reimbursement for the lunches served came back to the school department to help cover their costs, but it certainly didn't cover all of the costs. So in that sense, the city and school budget was covering the costs of getting meals out.
Okay, and that is no longer the case once the Open Door takes over this program.
It is correct. It is still a federal program. In the seamless transition, we'll pick up where the school left off, and we'll get the federal reimbursements where they apply, and we'll go through the 10 weeks of the summer.
Great, great.
Julie, are there any nutritional guidelines for these meals, and how are you going about following those?
So the Open Door is no stranger to the Summer Meals Program, and in fact, we've been doing it since 2005. There are very stringent guidelines because it is a federal program. There is a meal pattern that must be followed, and it includes the right amounts of fruits and vegetables and proteins and grains, and nutritional analysis is done to set up the meal pattern. And then we as the sponsor have been responsible to follow those. That hasn't changed at all.
Mm-hmm. So, and here is the follow-up question. You've been doing the summer program all along. Is there anything different about the way you're doing it this year?
So yes, Heather, that's a great question. As I mentioned earlier, we have gotten some waivers from the state for this federal program. And one of the things that we'll be able to do that we have not been able to do in the past is go into a neighborhood and pass out the lunches and then leave without setting up a space for kids to eat. So basically kids can come out of their homes, get breakfasts and lunches for their household, or, for the kids in their household, and then take them back in. Under non-COVID guidelines, the summer meals program requires that you set up an area where kids stay and physically eat the lunch before they leave. So that with that relaxation of that rule, that will allow us to get a lot of meals out quickly into targeted places that make the most sense.
Great.
And so, Julie, if families want to learn more about this, I assume it's incumbent upon the families to go to these locations. So we just want to get the word out so they can learn about this program. But more details provided through the website?
Sure. So information about the program is located at foodpantry.org, where you will find a list of all of the program sites that I had mentioned, the times that they're serving. So those would be the times that families can go and expect to receive a lunch and a breakfast. And it also has the street address. So you just be able to just, if you're not familiar with where, Pondview Village is, you would be able to click that address in and go and participate.
Beautiful.
And is there anything else going on at the Open Door this summer? I'm sure there is. Anything else you'd like people to know about?
Oh, Heather, there's always something going on. But I will say that, we've been living in beta for the last 3 months. It's, as our friend Jen Perry likes to say, it's like trying to fly an airplane while you're building it. We have been modifying our existing programs for highest impact while meeting all of the safety guidelines. And so both food pantries will continue through the summer. Some of our mobile market work will continue. Our community meals work will continue for pickup or delivery only. We were running the summer meals program, but kind of the headline news here, the community needs to know about what will be different is we are reopening Second Glance on Wednesday, June 24th. We will be open reduced hours. We'll be going from being open 7 days a week pre-COVID to being open Wednesday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The really good news, and I know you're going to ask me this, is that the donation center is open by appointment only right now as we speak. And in order for us to be able to know what's coming into the building, control our process, make sure that we're following all the guidelines we need to follow, we've set up an online appointment system that can also be found at foodpantry.org. And right in the middle of the page, you'll see a button that will take you to the scheduling. You schedule yourself for a 15-minute appointment to drop your items off. People should know, we'll ask them to hand sanitize and wear the face mask as they bring their items into the building. We have a separate location within the same campus as the store on Pond Road, but just a little bit up the hill, where we'll be able to quarantine donations before we bring them into the store for sale. So, I think to the best of our ability, we have thought out a process that will make sense for people to be able to donate, to be able to shop, and also be able to support the Open Door.
Great. And how about your staff and volunteering? Are you all set for that? Do you feel like you're ready for the summer?
So huge shout out to Team Open Door. I have to say, these guys are the rock stars that have made it all happen. I think we talked at the beginning of this saying that we'd gone to a 2-team model, orange team and green team, working alternate weeks on-site and off-site. We were able to get our teams tested, and everyone is negative, so we've made it through with no positive cases, and we're merging our teams back together next week. And so Second Glance team will be back to Second Glance, and the Open Door team at Emerson Avenue will be there, and back to Ipswich as well. So our team has done a great job. We're still in a limited holding pattern on volunteers just because of the restrictions that we have to have. And the best way for people, if they do want to help, is to email helper@foodpantry.org. That's helper at foodpantry.org. And that will allow people to express their interest to help, and then we can match them with an opportunity should it become available. And I just can't say enough, we're so grateful to the community. Please don't be offended if your offer to help doesn't get matched with something. It's just we have so few slots right now that we can open up to the public. As soon as we can get it open wider, we will.
So there you have it. The Summer Meals Program for Kids is even more important than it has been in years past because of the whole COVID-19 crisis.
It's amazing how nimble the Open Door has been throughout all of this. They're doing so many things and helping out so many places. I keep thinking of the emergency shelter at the Y that they're providing meals for all the time as well, and all the bouncing around they're doing. So hats off to everyone there in Emerson Ave for their efforts. Heather and I also had another great conversation today, as we do every week, with Erica Brown. She's the publisher and editor of the Manchester Cricket.
Yes, we have some kind of like great chemistry with Erica. It's almost more fun than it is news. But she's got everything to say about Manchester, and there's something going on there today.
I just came from the live stream of at the state Senate floor of Senator Tarr giving about a 10-minute proclamation and really beautiful, kind words for the birthday of the 375th birthday for Manchester by the Sea.
And that is today.
It's today. It's today on Thursday, June 18th, and today we were supposed to have a birthday party. The 375th committee, and I'm on that committee, had a whole slate, 22 plus events that were supposed to take place this year. And like a 2020 graduate, we've had a disappointing year. So we probably got through maybe 4 or 5 of them before we were kind of stalled. And so I think Senator Tarr took a lot of pity on us, and he really went out of his way to make it special for us. He spoke words. It wasn't just a normal proclamation. It was, he went through the history of Manchester, from Manchester being a center for furniture making and fishing before it became discovered by the Tony set in the 19th century of industrialists and presidents, and became sort of Gold Coast-ish. But he talked about everything. He talked about the presidents. He talked about fishing. He talked about Singing Beach. He talked about Manchester by the Sea and Casey Affleck even. I mean, he talked about everything. He went the whole way. And he was really eloquent. He was great on his feet, which he always is, but it was so clear that he knew what he was going to say. And then he went out of his way to say that he had prepared the remarks and he was planning on doing it in person, and he was hoping to, but instead now he wanted to share it basically with everyone on the Senate floor. And he wanted everyone there to know that people were tuning in through their devices for the proclamation. And then he read the proclamation, you know, the whole whereas, and it was really nice. It was great.
Very cool. Erica, you wanted to talk about a couple of big outdoor town meetings.
Yeah, we had 2 outdoor town meetings. We started talking about this when Alan Wilson, the town moderator of Manchester, what was it, 2 months ago, first suggested it. When he suggested it, I think we all 3 of us were like, what? It was such a odd concept. And now here we are on Saturday, last Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning at the Essex Elementary School. Essex had its town meeting outside, and it went off without a hitch. It was great. It went off without a hitch, though, with a lot of planning. Like many things, a lot of things look easy because they had a lot of hard prep. Pam Thorne, who's the town clerk over in Essex, she was telling me they set out 200 chairs outside. It was kind of on the blacktop area behind Essex Elementary. Do you know where the that fence is? And they've got the basketball courts and stuff. Yep. And everything was sort of set up perfectly. They even went down to collecting 50 rocks because they were anticipating that the wind would make it really messy. So they thought of everything. People were allowed to go into the bathroom, but only maybe one at a time. So they really kind of thought through everything, and it went really, really well. As a matter of fact, they had a quorum. The state had said that their quorum was only 30. They had a really low bar. Yeah. But, I think the number at the end was 177 residents showed up. And the reason why, first of all, they had, get this, 37 articles on the warrant.
Whoa.
That's a big warrant in any year. That's massive. That's a big warrant. That's a heavy one.
Yeah.
That's 12 pounds of warrants in a 10-pound bag. Anyway, so the big things they went through just quickly is they passed cannabis, which was not a surprise. So there's going to be a cannabis retailer, a recreational cannabis retailer and cultivator, BB Botanics, which we've talked about before, is going to be allowed to come into town. It's all, they basically put out the broad zoning strokes of what that would be, setbacks, where it could be, what's the profile of the property. Just a side note, apparently some people were accusing the town of saying that they wrote the zoning to only suit one candidate, which sometimes that happens. It's not at all what happened. There are 8 sites in town that would actually conform to those zoning requirements. So there you go. But then the other thing they did is they decided that they would only allow 1 license. So that's it. So by doing this, they basically buttoned down the runaway cannabis train. So Essex will not be a Gloucester with several sites. It will be just 1 site. And they're going to now turn their attention to formalizing and signing the host community agreement, which is the state mandated agreement between a town and a cannabis retailer, medical or recreational. And it allows for the town to capture up to 3% of a surcharge of their revenues for the town. So the town's going to make money. And not surprisingly, Essex has chosen to go right to the 3%.
No.
So yeah.
And this site that has been declared is on 133, right?
133. Is it the Shays Furniture Building? The old Shays Furniture Building on the way to Cranes Beach. It's like on the Ipswich side. They were going to be on the exact opposite end of town, on Western Avenue. Western? I was confused Western and Eastern. But over by the Red Barrel Pub and by Essex Seafood. It was basically across the street. It was an old antique by Harlow Street, the corner.
That's Eastern. That's Eastern.
Yeah, Eastern. And it's not going to happen there, obviously. The site was too problematic for them, and they actually found a better site. So that's going to happen. There was also a big thing happened, or I should say it this way. There was a big thing that didn't happen. And that was they voted to postpone consideration of the downtown zoning district. I don't know if that's a big move, actually, because the planning board and the town officials, like economic development board, has been really involved. The economic development study that Essex been working on with state consultants for the last year plus. It's all involved with essentially formalizing downtown to make it attractive and viable for businesses and not make it so informal. So they would formalize what's already happening, which is mixed use of residential and commercial areas downtown. There's a whole slew of things. A lot of work went into it. And it didn't go through mostly because members of a specific neighborhood over on Pickering Street, over by Martin and like Pickering Street, and then also Winthrop Street, they didn't like the fact that they were included in the district. I think they're going to nip and tuck the district, maybe. I don't know that, but my guess is because this really does have to go through if Essex wants to widen out its economic base, which is really what it needs to do. It needs to attract different types of businesses that are going to pay different types of taxes. Right now, they're very, and this might be a good segue into another thing we're going to talk about, but it's a way to woo people outside of restaurants and hospitality, which is Essex over-indexes on. It's got a lot of restaurants, a lot of destination places. And so that's a very specific type of business. It's great, but it's one thing, and it's not always healthy to have just one ingredient in the mix for anything. So
they have two things. They have antiques too, right?
Yes, they have antiques too. Sorry. And then Manchester's going to have its outdoor town meeting this week, because we were, after all, talking about town meetings, but it's not as dramatic. There aren't as many articles, and it's mostly financial stuff. It's pretty pro forma stuff, really.
But that's also al fresco, right?
It's al fresco at the high school.
Yeah. So let's return to Essex and businesses. Tell us who's opening, and in Manchester also, in phase 2.
Yeah, Manchester and Essex, like every town, they're now going into their sort of phase 2, the state's phase 2 reality. And for downtowns, that's retail and restaurants, right? So for Essex, and here we're back at what I was just talking about, because Essex is so savvy with its restaurant expertise is like way up, right? So you've got these real savvy veterans like Woodman's and Shays and those guys, the Village, all really understanding their businesses quite well. They're not waiting for the towns to tell them. They're probably already tuning into the state itself to understand, and they had already started. So when outdoor dining was allowed as part of this phase 2 reopening, and not to say the BOS hasn't been talking about it, because the BOS has been talking about it, but they were already moved, so that by the time the gates opened, they were bang, done. Woodman's Outback has what can only be described as an outdoor dining pavilion. I mean, it is a massive wedding tent and they didn't do because they didn't have to, actually. They didn't do what most restaurants do, which is put in their parking lot. Most restaurants are redeploying their parking lots. So by the way, police are expecting there's going to be parking problems because of that this summer, but let's deal with that later. But Shays was able to Woodman's was able to put their tent right on the marsh grass, the grass overlooking the marsh. They have a big wide open area. So they still got their parking and they have the tent. So basically what is allowed to do is you're allowed to actually serve outside. You're allowed to give customers, patrons, and in the case of Woodman's, it would be this way, takeout that they can take to the pavilion, but they've also widened out the restrictions or loosened the restrictions on alcohol. So you can actually drink out there if you're in the outdoor dining space, right? So that's really what the towns are doing. So this includes now, Shays has an outdoor cordoned off area as well as their deck. The Village has their deck, and they have their restrictions, but they're going to be rolling out. But they have less of a problem because they have such a large, deck area. But other areas, all the other restaurants, Farnham's hasn't missed a beat. They're the same, right?
True.
Right, picnic tables, right, yeah.
A, they're seasonal,
Yeah.
and B, they already had their picnic tables outside. So, I mean, what did they lose, like 4 weeks?
Yeah, right. It's
So,
amazing how nature has become all these restaurants' best friend, right? Our beautiful natural environment. And
exactly. Well, over in Manchester, they don't have the luxury of having what Essex has. So they actually got approved technically immediately by the BOS to apply, but they're like on a week delay because then they had to apply. Then the next week they got approved. So they're like a week behind. So far, we have Cala's downtown and we have Bravo that have been approved. I know that Antique Table is applying. I know that the Mooring is applying, and the Mooring needs to because the Mooring has no outdoor space. So they are anxious to do this. But in Manchester, what they're going to do is allow use for setups to cordon off in front on the sidewalk area. And I think a lot of towns are doing that. Gloucester, they're doing that. But you're allowed to use the sidewalk space up to the parking area, to the parking space in front of your spot, and then they redeploy the parking as the sidewalk. So that's what they're going to do. I expect everyone is going to follow suit.
Well, and hopefully we have continued good weather, because that's sort of, that greeted the reopening of that phase. We haven't had rain since it's open.
It's been a blessing that we've had the most incredible weather.
Mm-hmm.
And we really have, yeah.
Erica, you want to talk about the elections real quickly, the upcoming June 30th?
Yeah, we have two elections. We have elections in Essex on the 22nd, and then a week later we have them in Manchester on the 30th. We talked a little bit about Essex. The only contested race is between Guy Bradford and Peter Hoare for the Board of Selectmen seat from Andrew Spinney, who's stepping down or stepping away. We hope he comes back. And that's sort of a race. They've been really good about having these sort of debates, these online forums, and really getting out and introducing themselves. And I really give them a lot of credit for it. The Essex Merchants Group had them last week. The Lions and the Chamber had, and 1623 had a debate, and I participated in that. And then today, the Chamber of Commerce, they spoke this morning to the Essex Division. So that's really going on. That's really interesting. And I love the fact that they've been so engaged. In Manchester, it's a lot more straightforward. We started to write about it this week, but people really have to get their absentee ballots mailed in, and returned. Like, for instance, in Essex, those ballots have to be returned by today. Otherwise, but you still can go to the polls, but it's limited. Like in Essex, it's only for 6 hours, I think. I think it's from noon until 6, where it's normally at 7 a.m. Manchester's a little better. They have 7 a.m. to, I think, 7 p.m. They have a wider amount, but you still have to get your mail-in ballots in. In Manchester, it's pretty straightforward. We have Muffin Driscoll, Margaret Noonan Muffin Driscoll. She's stepping down after a lot of service. We've had a lot of, the BOS has really dealt with a lot in any town this last year. So anyone who served and is stepping down, they deserve a lot of credit. Yep. It's a well-deserved rest. Yep. So she's stepping down, and then so is Arthur Steinert. So there's 2 positions open there. That's going to be, it's uncontested. We have John Round, who is very well known, really. He's well known and well admired and loved, non-controversial, really great. And then for the other position, we have Ann Harrison, who is a veteran as well. She was on the FinCom for years. She's just really, those types of people are stepping up, which is really nice. The only, what we call action, is on the planning board. And the action really is about the fact that there's 2 open seats. And one of them, Andrea Fish, who is in it now, she didn't return her papers. So she doesn't want her seat again, which is fine. But nobody's taken out papers. So in the ballot, it's all caps, vacant. Couldn't be more. But Gary Gilbert, who is a Manchester resident, he's very well known in this area. He's an architect. He served on the master plan committee for 3 years. He's been on the planning board. He's been on the zoning board of appeals. He's stepped up and just wrote into the paper this week he's doing a write-in candidacy. So that's a nice sort of surrogate. You know what I mean? It makes up for the fact that it's vacant.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert.
Exactly.
And lastly, Erica, they've begun raising the old memorial school.
Oh my goodness, yeah. There's been a lot going on since I last spoke to you.
Yeah.
Yes, the Memorial School, which was built in the 50s, the Memorial Elementary School, which everyone sort of is warm in their hearts, but if they actually took a spin through it, they'd realize why it needed to be raised. Yeah. This is what got passed in October of 2018 to replace this school. It's been under construction for the last year, but what they did was a year ago, they bulldozed half of it, and they started building a beautiful building for the last year. It looks gorgeous. It's nearly done now. And then what would happen is the plan was that next year the kids would move into the new half, and then they would finish the rest of it. So nobody would miss a beat, nobody would be displaced. So that meant that the second half that had yet to be brought down was brought down starting last Friday. Sadly, it was the part that was the front of the school, which had the name and really is what everyone thinks of as the school. But it went down, and if you were to walk over there on Lincoln Street right now, there's nothing but rubble.
Yeah. All right, so that's a wrap for you Thursday. We want to thank, as always, the Gloucester Daily Times and the Manchester Cricket and our sponsors at Salo Home Watch. Tomorrow we have Taylor Bradford from the Times and Ruth Lindsay and Teresa Dixon of Senior Care talking about their RSVP volunteer program. Heather, have a great Thursday. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. You too, Corey.